Civil War News Report.
Today we will be discussing the Battle of Antietam.
To start off, let's learn the background of the battle with an interview with the Battle of Antietam expert Katie Benson.
What was the Battle of Antietam?
The Battle of Antietam was a culmination of the Maryland Campaign of 1862. The Maryland Campaign was the first invasion of the North by General Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia.
What was another name for the Battle of Antietam?
The Battle of Sharpsburg.
Where and when was the battle fought?
The battle was mostly fought on September 17, 1862 in Sharpsburg, Maryland, along the Antietam Creek.
Who fought in the battle?
The Union under General George B. McClellan and the Confederate Army under General Robert E. Lee.
What was the result of the battle?
The battle ended with a Union victory because Lee withdrew to Virginia.
How many soldiers were in the armies?
The Union Army had 75,300 soldiers and the Confederates had 52,000.
How did this all begin?
After Lee's victory at the Second Battle of Manassas, Lee wrote the Confederate President Jefferson Davis saying that he wanted to keep the offensive but still secure the independence for the South. Lee also wanted to move out of Virginia and influence the fall midterm elections. Also, he wanted to encourage Maryland to succeed to join the Confederacy.
What did Lee do afterwards?
After crossing the Potomac River and arriving in Frederick, Lee sent General Thomas Stonewall Jackson and half of the army to capture the Union garrison at Harper's Ferry. The rest of the Confederate army moved north and west towards South Mountain and Hagerstown, Maryland.
What happened to the Union Army?
President Lincoln told General McClellan to protect the capital and respond to Lee's invasion. He reorganized the Army of Potomac and moved into Sharpsburg. When they were moving into Maryland, two soldiers had to find Special Order 191. Special Order 191 was a copy of Lee's battle plans.
A copy of Special Order Number 191 was used to bundle a few cigars. It was dropped accidentally in a field on the Best Farm, where two Federal soldiers of the 27th Indiana Regiment found it. The order was given to McClellan.
McClellan allowed 17 hours to pass before marching towards Lee's army. This gave time for Lee's men to regroup at the base of South Mountain. The armies first clashed at South Mountain.
Thank you, Katie, for talking to us.
Next up, we have a special interview with Catherine Hutchinson.
Catherine will be talking to us about the clash at South Mountain and the troops arriving in Sharpsburg.
Catherine, what exactly happened at South Mountain?
On September 14th, 38,000 Union troops attacked 12,000 Confederate troops that were posted as rear guards at the Cramptons, Turners, and Fox's Gaps on South Mountain. By dusk, the Confederates retreated, suffering heavy losses. There were a total of 2,500 Union casualties and 3,800 Confederate casualties.
What happened at Harper's Ferry in the meantime?
Lee's army captured Harper's Ferry. Lee then gathered his forces and decided to move his men to the Antietam Creek. By midday on September 16th, 6 of Lee's 9 divisions arrived.
Where was the Union Army at the time?
McClellan moved his men east of the Antietam Creek. On the afternoon of September 16th, McClellan sent General Joseph Hooker across the creek with one corps. McClellan assigned his corps commanders to attack certain areas, but he failed to communicate his overall plan.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, for talking to us.
Next, we will have a special surprise for you. A never-before-seen interview with a Civil War battle expert, Jordan Hellman.
Tell us about the phases of the battle.
The morning phase of the battle took place at Dunker Church, the east and west woods, and the cornfield.
What happened in the morning?
The battle opened at about 5:30 a.m. on the morning of September 17th with an attack at Hagerstown Turnpike by the Union I Corps under Joseph Hooker. Hooker's men marched toward Dunker Church.
The Dunker Church was located between the Hagerstown Road and the West Woods.
On the opposite side of the road was Miller's cornfield. Hooker's troops emerged from the north woods and set up their artillery at the cornfield.
What happened at Miller's cornfield?
An artillery duel erupted at the cornfield. The attack at West Woods and Miller's cornfield turned into slaughter pens. There were dead bodies everywhere. Then shortly, before 7:30 in the morning, Confederate troops led by General Hill and Hood forced the First Corps away from the cornfield. The First Corps lost 25% of their soldiers, including their commander, General Hooker. Lee then shifted his troops from the right of his line.
What else happened that morning?
Next, Union Major General Joseph K.F. Mansfield commanded the 12th Corps. Mansfield was one of the first of his men to be wounded, and the assault moved forward. The Union troops managed to take part of the cornfield and East Woods. The whole assault lasted a total of 29 minutes.
Was there a third attack that morning?
Yes, after 3 hours of fighting, McClellan ordered yet another attack. At 9 a.m., Union General Bull Sumner attacked Jackson's line. Sumner's 18,000 men went forward, but lost their alignment. Jackson ordered his troops to charge into the cornfield and reach the northern end. Jackson did not follow through the attack, so it marks at the end of a 4-hour fight on the Confederate left flank.
What was the second phase of the battle?
The second phase of the battle began around 10 a.m. and lasted 4 hours. It took place at the Sunken Road, also known as Bloody Lane.
What happened at the Bloody Lane?
The Union aimed to attack the Confederate center. Lee's center was held by 2 brigades commanded by Robert Rhodes and G.B. Anderson. The sunken road that the Confederates were on ran 1,000 yards south and east. The Confederates spotted Union forces on the hill above them. The Union forces were part of Sumner's 2nd Corps. As the Union troops advanced forward, the Confederates brought in reinforcements and the Union troops seemed to disappear. This continued on for 3 hours.
What happened at about 1 p.m.?
The Union troops attacked the remaining 300 Confederates, forcing them to fall back into new positions. McClellan ended the fight there, which marked the end of the second phase.
What was the third and final phase of the battle?
The third and final phase of the battle took place at what would be later called Burnside's Bridge. General Ambrose Burnside planned to attack the Confederate right flank. Burnside sent his troops 1 regiment at a time across the bridge. The fighting continued at the bridge and hillside.
What did the Union Army do?
The Union Army began moving troops towards Lee's weakened flank. Union troops moved within 900 yards of Lee's escape route. It seemed as if the Union victory was close, but they didn't notice that General A.P. Hill's light division were approaching from the south. Hill's men marched from Harper's Ferry to Sharpsburg, but only 3,000 men made it. Hill's troops never stopped screaming the rebel yell into the Union left flank. The Union advance was stopped, and it marked the final action of the battle.
What happened the next day?
On September 18th, both armies waited to renew the fight, but no one did. So, Lee and his army withdrew to Virginia that night.
Thanks for explaining what exactly happened on September 17, 1862.
Next up is an exclusive interview with Aashna Reddy, talking to us about the effect of the battle. What were the immediate results of the battle?
The Battle of Antietam ended up being the single bloodiest one-day battle in American history. In fact, 1 of every 4 soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured.
How many total casualties were there in the battle?
There were 12,401 Union casualties and 10,316 Confederate, for a total of 22,717.
How did the battle affect the North?
For the North, the battle saved the nation because the Confederate invasion was turned away, and that was the main threat. Also, the battle lifted the Union's hopes of winning the war.
What did people think of Lee and his army?
People believed that Lee's leadership at the time of the battle was in fact the best of his career, and he had the right to claim a moral victory because he still held his position the day after the battle.
What happened to George McClellan after the battle?
President Lincoln ran out of patience with General McClellan, his top general, because McClellan was not prepared to attack the Army of Northern Virginia until 6 weeks after Antietam. Lincoln believed he lost a chance to end the war.
What was Lincoln's view of McClellan?
Lincoln realized that McClellan did not have the driver-killer instinct that was needed to win the war, so Lincoln fired him.
Were there any opportunities that were lost in the war?
Well, George McClellan acted too slowly after his 2 soldiers found Special Order 191, because in the meantime, Lee's army was able to capture Harper's Ferry and gather troops in Sharpsburg before McClellan's army.
How about on September 15th?
When the Union Army arrived in Sharpsburg on September 15th, they lost another opportunity by not attacking Lee immediately. Because of that, Lee had time to move his men to their spots. Also, McClellan was more concerned about protecting Washington and his army from a rebel counterattack than destroying the Confederates.
What was the public and political impact of the battle?
The battle killed any hopes of foreign intervention for the South. Also, the Confederacy was extremely upset, and Jefferson Davis was devastated.
What was the effect in Congress?
Lincoln said after the battle that it saved a number of northern and western governor and legislative seats that may have gone to peace Democrats.
Who were the Peace Democrats?
Peace Democrats were opponents of Lincoln's war policy and advocates of a negotiated peace with the South.
Was there any effect on the citizens and other people?
Well, 2 days after the battle, Alexander Gardner published pictures of the carnage in newspapers around New York City. The pictures showed people the reality of war and the sacrifices that would have to be made in order to win the war.
What did the victory at Antietam enable Lincoln to do?
The victory was enough for Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which changed the war into a battle for human freedom and to end slavery.
Thank you for talking with us today. Let's get back to the others for more on the Emancipation Proclamation.
Now let's talk more about Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation.
Lincoln read the proclamation in September of 1862, and it went into effect on January 1st, 1863. Lincoln did not want to appear desperate when the North was losing the war, so he wanted to wait until the Union got a victory.
Lincoln announced to his cabinet on September 22, 1862, 5 days after the Battle of Antietam, that it was time to issue the proclamation. Lincoln's preliminary proclamation declared that as of January 1, 1863, slaves in rebel territories, but not in border states, shall be free.
The proclamation only freed slaves in areas of Confederate control. Slaves in border states, which were Kentucky, Missouri, Maryland, and Delaware, were not freed because the proclamation only ordered the freedom of slaves in the Confederacy.
The document impacted Britain and France because they decided to withhold recognition of the Confederacy. Lincoln did not want Britain and France to help the South by giving them extra supplies and aid. Lincoln also believed that every enslaved person enabled a white Southerner to fight in the Confederate Army.
The proclamation had a big impact on the war effort, as it gave the North a moral boost because it announced the acceptance of slaves and blacks in the Union Army. The North had the ability to recruit more African American soldiers, giving them advantage over the South. It changed the meaning of the Civil War because at first Lincoln wanted to save the Union, but then he wanted to end slavery as well.
By the end of the war, more than 200,000 slaves and African Americans fought for the Union and for freedom. Overall, the Emancipation Proclamation raised optimism amongst the slaves. It also led to the passing of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery everywhere in the United States.
Thank you for listening to the Civil War News Report.
Oh, we're doing action. Right.
Jordan, you little turd. Wait, as I'm talking?
You die and I'll be like, oh my god, he's dead.
On the opposite side of the road, I was like,